What does it take to create a vibrant, thriving life? First, the sad news is that Thoreau was right. Most people are leading quiet lives of desperation, lacking in meaning, fulfillment, and vitality. But we choose more. We choose to create extraordinary lives. And the Art of Vibrant Living show entertains you with inspiration, empowerment, and education to create your life into a masterpiece. It's time. Let's vibe up. Aloha, y'all. Daniel Aaron here. I'm your host. This is the Art of Vibrant Living show, and good golly, we got a great show for you today. I'm excited for this dude's story. I'll tell you about him in a minute. And not only his story, what has come from that story, right? There's a saying I learned many years ago that all art begins as pain and is an attempt to heal that pain. And I don't think that's necessarily entirely true. However, there is truth in it, and we are getting to some art today. Before I tell you about our guest, though, let's talk about you, because you are the reason we are here. Yes, this is a show to entertain, to inspire, mostly though to empower you. So please do something. Do something with the information you get today. Morry will deliver to you wisdom and truth. It's up to you though to apply that in your life. I recommend hanging out to the end because there's a very cool gift that will help you apply it in a perhaps miraculous way, although it's science also. So enough said, though. I'm excited to share with you a phenomenal dude by the name of Morry Zelcovitch. And he spent the first 40 years of his life in a deep, dark depression, tried to kill himself at least half a dozen times. And as he said, if he truly wanted to die, once would have been enough. So when he couldn't figure out a way to actually die, he had to find a way to live. And he did. And now he helps others either avoid completely or get out of this situation themselves. And he is the foremost brainwave entrainment engineer in the world. Excited that you are with us, Morry. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Daniel. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, well, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And, you know, when I shared with our audience just a little bit about you, deep, dark depression, and even beyond the alliteration that makes it hit home, that's serious stuff. Tried to kill yourself half a dozen times at least. Personally, I have a sister who did kill herself, right? So which is part of what informs my mission to serve people. So you're talking about serious stuff, 40 years of being in a deep, dark depression. What, like, I don't know. How did it change then? I mean, because that doesn't sound good. A lot of people don't get out of a hole that deep and dark. How did this happen? What's the story, man?
Well, for as long as I can remember, I just didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like I was out of place, out of time. I literally believed I was not of this planet. Like I was left here by the mothership. They had to get out before the human virus took over. And I guess I got distracted somewhere else and I didn't make it for the launch. But I used to wake up every single morning and I would cross my fingers and stand on my bed and look out the window. And I would wish I would see mushroom clouds. Because if I saw mushroom clouds, it meant I wouldn't have to see another day. I had an affirmation that I repeated, felt like millions of times. Maybe it wasn't millions of times, but it certainly felt that way. And it was over the span of 40 years. Life is a disease for which there is no cure but death.
Oof.
That's how I felt. I was equally afraid to live as I was afraid to die. So That's probably why I never succeeded in any of my attempts to end my life, because I was so afraid of dying. I thought it would be even worse than what I was going through living. And I just couldn't make do. I couldn't put anything together. I hated people. I hated myself. If people were laughing somewhere, I felt they were laughing at me. I was pissed off because they could laugh. I couldn't. I faked it. I had friends somehow. But that's what it was. I feel like for any of you who've ever felt depressed or down or bored even, you know how slow time moves, right? I feel like I'm about 1,000 years old.
Hmm.
That's how slow time has moved through most of my life.
Hmm.
But I now feel that I'm grateful for everything. I'm grateful for all the pain. I'm grateful for all the hate. I'm grateful for all the disgust. And I'm just grateful for it all, because if it wasn't for all of that, I would never have come across this thing called brainwave entrainment, which ended up bringing me out of the abyss once I adapted it and changed it and evolved it. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't be loving my life. I wouldn't, who knows? I might be wearing a shirt and a tie working behind a desk.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that if what you do. But for me, that would be like a second hell on earth. Instead, I get to do what I love doing, what my heart sings about. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't first go through the pain. Understand something: pain and suffering, that's a state of mind. It's also a state of time. So I kind of don't care that I was depressed for 40 years. That's in the past. That happened already. It doesn't happen now. If I think about those times, I'm thinking about them now. If I remember those times, I'm remembering those times now. Same thing with the future. If I think about the future, I'm thinking about it now. What does that tell me? It tells me there's only now. So I'm, again, very grateful for all the pain and suffering that I went through, because it taught me so much about myself and about the brain and about neurobiology and neurochemistry and so many other things, that I realized my pain and suffering was for a purpose. And that purpose was to not only help myself, but to help so many others all over the planet. And that makes me feel so nice.
Hmm.
I don't know I could feel this good if I didn't feel so bad to begin with.
Hmm. Well, thank you. I mean, as you speak that, it reminds me of one of my greatest heroes, Viktor Frankl, right? Who was for anyone who doesn't know, wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He went through unspeakable suffering as a Holocaust victim, lost, his family, his wife. Um, and one of the things that he said very famously coming out of that is if any of us have a why big enough, then we can withstand anything, right? And so that's what I heard you say in different words is you went through just really horrible stuff for an incredibly long time. However, you've come to a realization about why, and a why that's big, that's beyond you. um, and that's beautiful. So I will ask you soon more about these big fancy words that you're so casually throwing around: brainwave entrainment. We'll get to, like, what does that really mean, and all that. But let's zoom in a little bit on that. Here you were in the deep dark depression and upset because people could laugh and you couldn't. And um, what was the transition? How did you break free from that?
Well, it was a multifaceted, multi-step event or series of events. But the first one was, one of the things that I experienced all the time is thousands of voices in my head. And I've already mentioned also about the time moving so slowly.
Hmm.
So I was on a camping trip with friends. These are imaginary friends because they're real people, but I wasn't really who I really am. So they were friends with who I was projecting to be, not with who I truly was.
Hmm.
And at that time, I was addicted to alcohol and drugs, particularly marijuana, cocaine, that kind of stuff. And I couldn't sleep unless I was wasted. So every single night, like, I would go to bed I would have to smoke a couple of joints. So everyone else had gone to sleep already. I was sitting around the fire and I rolled up a really big fat joint. And I figured, well, this thing, should take me about half an hour to smoke. So I figured, okay, it's around midnight. I'll go to bed around 12:30, 1 o'clock. I'll get some sleep. I rolled the joint. I started smoking it. And when it was over, I got up to go to bed and I looked at my watch and it was about 5 in the morning. 4.5 hours just zipped right by. That was the very first time in my life that time passed quickly. And I was sorry? Oh, okay, sorry. I thought you wanted to say something. So I was very uncomfortable at the beginning. Like for the first few seconds, I was a little scared. But then I suddenly realized this is a new experience for me. I've never been like this before. And what is it that caused this? Because time's never passed fast for me. It's excruciatingly slow, actually. So I started thinking, well, I'm sitting outside. Big deal. I sit outside all the time. I'm sitting around a fire, but I wasn't looking at the fire. But then I started hearing it again, and I'm thinking, all the wood, it was very dry. And if any of you have ever been around a natural fire with logs and the wood is dry, lots of popping sounds because, there's little air pockets and they kind of get superheated and they expand and pop, 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 almost like popcorn. And I thought maybe that had something to do with it. So when I got back from the camping trip, I went to a place I call the Paper Internet. Daniel, can you guess where that is?
The paper internet.
Yeah. It's a
I'm lost.
library. It's a
Oh,
library.
I've heard of the library. No, I love the
Yeah,
library. I go to the library often. I'm one of the few people I know that does. I'm with you. Okay.
so that's the thing. So I went to a library and I started studying. I said, well, there's something going on with my brain here. And there's something going on with my perception of time all of a sudden, too. So I started doing research. I started studying the brain, neurobiology, quantum physics, perception, psychology, sociology, all kinds of different disciplines that might have something to do with why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And as I was studying these things and research papers, too, there were a lot of research papers on neurobiology and neurochemistry and all these things. I was starting to gain an understanding as to what might have been going on in my head. And the popping sounds were something, there's that old line, music hath charms that soothe the savage breast. And what that means is that there's something about the music itself that calms. It can be calming. And I noticed there's certain kinds of music, if I listen to it, it makes me kind of pissed off and angry, and other types of music make me feel very calm and sedate. And I thought, maybe there's something to the sound. And as I started researching it, I started looking. You see, I tried to find cures for everything that was bothering me because for the longest time, I thought it was natural. I thought everybody was like me. Everybody was depressed. Everybody hated life. Everybody hated everything. As I grew older, I realized, well, maybe it isn't so common. But I tried the usual things, like I said, I was a drug addict. I was an alcoholic. I was even addicted to sex because anything I could do to try to get myself to forget, to stop thinking, that's what I was doing. Obviously, I don't think I need to say this, but I will anyway. All of those things made my life much worse. I started trying anything and everything I could find, things like EMDR, hypnosis, meditation, breathing techniques, all these different things and hundreds more. None of them helped me. Every time I'd find something that might help, I'd get excited for a few seconds until I got taken down again. It was like a horrible, horrible Twilight Zone-ish roller coaster. Then one day I decided, just trying stuff. I mean, I was trying electrotherapy. I was trying all kinds of things. When I realized I wasn't getting anywhere, I thought I better double down on understanding what my problem is. Because maybe if I understood, I'd have an easier time figuring out what's going on and maybe being able to help myself. That's when I started going to doctors who I don't think they believed me. They thought I was full of it, so they never treated me. They never helped me. I went to homeopaths and osteopaths and chiropractors and psychiatrists and psychologists, they didn't do anything for me either. This was all before the days of pills for everything, by the way.
Hmm.
So eventually, I did come across this thing called brainwave entrainment, and it ticked all the boxes. It should have helped me, but it didn't.
Hmm.
And the interesting thing was that I knew on some level it should have. I went through like depression and then super depressions, depression, super depressions. And when I realized that it should have helped, but it wasn't, I thought maybe this is why I felt this way my whole life, because I was supposed to find this stuff and evolve it, change it, make it different. As I made it different and then eventually tried it, that made a change in my perception and how I felt about my future. Just after one 30-minute listening, significant, not permanent changes, but alterations in how I thought of things, even if it was just for a few minutes. Those thousands of voices I told you about, for the first time in my life, they disappeared for 5 minutes. I didn't even know they were gone until I started hearing them coming back after I designed my first recording. I knew I was onto something. And ever since then, I can't stop. I created my first system. It was called Quantum Mind Power. It has evolved into something called the Quantum Mind Method today. I have 40 other products, and I'm working on 50 other techniques that are proprietary, new and innovative, to help people to get into different states of mind that are natural and healthful. And it all came from pain. So that's why when I said earlier, I'm actually grateful for it all. I truly am. Without having the pain and acknowledging it, who knows where I'd be now. For the rest of you who maybe haven't had this kind of pain, imagine you break your leg and it doesn't hurt. Maybe you don't go to a doctor. Maybe you don't go to a hospital. Maybe they don't set your bone. Maybe you can't walk anymore because you never got it taken care of because it didn't hurt. Pain is not something, this is what I learned. Pain is not something to be to be fearful of. It's not something to feel, oh, woe is me about. It's there to tell you. It's like the red light on the dashboard of your life. It's there to tell you something's amiss and you need to give it attention. That's what pain is there for. At least that's what my current understanding is. I suppose I should take a breath and let you get a word in edgewise.
Well, I love everything you said, Morry. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, and I'm glad you added the piece about, sort of the time frame we were in, and it was before the advent of the Zoloft nation and all of that, right?
Yes.
And it's because at first when you're saying you went to, doctors and psychologists and they didn't believe you, I'm like, what do you mean they didn't believe you? Everybody knows that, but it's true. You remind me there was a time, and I remember this when I was young, and we didn't know about depression and we barely knew anything about addiction, right?
Yeah.
And now, of course, it's incredibly mainstream, and we've got all these sort of fallacious symptom removers via pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
And so in a sense, it was a blessing that you were in the dark, which allowed you to discover something else. So I'm with you. I get that. So let's go to a deeper level then for the non-scientists among us.
Yeah.
I think let's go basic really for a moment. And one of my favorite things is when I meet people, smart people like you, who've got knowledge and experience different than I have. I often say, well, talk to me like I'm an idiot. And they're always like, well, duh, of course, that's easy. But like basic, like what are brain waves and what is entrainment? Let's start there. Would you give us some fundamentals?
Sure. So basically, everything that's come out of my mouth so far and that will come out of my mouth from this point on is coming from a place of what I call current understanding.
Hmm.
I actually do not believe in truth and I don't believe in fact. It's been my experience that when I knew something, it wasn't good for me.
Hmm.
And often I was wrong. And I've looked at a lot of in history and historically speaking, what humans have thought is the truth later on gets proven to be something else. They used to drill holes in women's heads to release the evil spirits if they were diagnosed as being hysterical. And that was the truth. It's the truth that you're possessed by evil spirits, and the only way to get rid of them is to drill holes in your head so they can get out. That was the truth. That, of course, is a pretty dramatic example. But so here's the thing. Brain waves are created by multiple things. So by your perception, by stimulation, like cold, heat, other people, pets, anything like that at all. They're also created by your thoughts. So if you were to put on an EEG, electroencephalogram, that measures brainwave activity, and you were to be watching my brainwaves as I'm speaking and talking about certain things, you would notice different regions of my brain lighting up, they call it. So different colors and whatever. These colors are just randomly assigned, by the way. They're not actual red or blue or green or orange or pink. They're just randomly assigned by whoever's running the EEG. But the thing about brainwaves is that they are produced by neurons. Neurons are your brain cells. So you have billions of them. And the way a neuron functions is it pulses, now not like a heart or a lung, but it pulses an electric beat as if you were to stand by a light switch and flick it on and flick it off, flick it on and flick it off. And depending on how many times a second you flick it on or flick it off in a second, how many times you do that in a second, that dictates the kind of state that neuron is in. So most of us have heard of things like alpha, beta, theta, delta, and gamma. All those are words that signify a range of how many times that neuron is turning on and off or creating that electric impulse per second. Depending on the region of the brain, so if it's here, if it's here, if it's here, over here, and how many times it's flipping itself on and off, that creates chemistry, neurochemistry. Most of us have heard of neurotransmitters and endorphins and hormones. All of these things are created by the different stimulation patterns and the different beat rates, if you will, of the neurons. Once these chemicals coalesce, that creates your ability to have an experience. So if I was speaking with Daniel right now in person and Daniel slaps me in the face and my head flies off to the side and then it flies back to the center again, but my brain does not create brainwave activity that creates the chemistry to acknowledge that event happened, I won't know that he hit me. And I won't be aware that my head went like this and I saw different things and then it came back. Everything we feel, according to my current understanding, everything we interpret, everything we sense is nothing more than an interpretation based on brainwave activity, which creates chemistry. Chemistry can be equated to your smartphone. You tap on one spot to get your calendar, another spot to get a calculator, another spot to get your email. Those different spots could be equated to different types of chemistry, different recipes, if you will, of the chemistry. What brainwave entrainment does is it produces audio in most cases with mine, but sometimes visual as well, where it'll beat like bom, 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 bom. And depending how many times a second it beats, that's the dominant brainwave state that I entrain or cause your brain to start following. So if you've ever listened to music and you like music and you're bopping your head and you're tapping your toes, you're not trying to do that. It's just happening. That's a form of entrainment. So even if you've never done brainwave entrainment before, you've been entrained before. If you've ever driven on the highway and the white lines are flickering by you and you kind of go, whoa, where was I? That's what's called highway hypnosis, and that's a form of entrainment. The flickering white line was flying by you so many times a second, and it's altering your dominant brainwave patterns. That's what I'm doing. You put on an ordinary pair of headphones, stereo, left and right. You lie down or you sit with head support, you close your eyes, you hit play. That's it. You can even fall asleep while you're listening. It makes no difference whatsoever. It serves to create a dominant brainwave frequency that helps your brain to get into that dominant frequency, which creates the dominant chemistry, which allows you to experience life differently. This is what happened to me that very first time I listened, and every time I've listened ever since. It altered my chemistry enough that I was able to perceive the world around me in a very different way. And that's after 40 years of going from super depression to depression, super depression to depression. I realized how powerful it was at that point. And that's what got me started. And that's why I just keep creating and I keep coming up with ways. I believe we can help everybody. I think we're only limited by our brains and our thoughts. I'm not limited at all because I believe everything is possible. I believe everything I can imagine has already been created. That's why I can imagine it.
Hmm.
And I think everybody should adopt a philosophy like that. Like, even if it's difficult to wrap your head around, there was a time when we didn't have smartwatches. There was a time before we had watches. There was a time before we had nail clippers. There was a time before we had cars, before we had a knife and a fork, before we had fire that we could actually control. Look at all the things around us that we don't give thought to, that we don't give our gratitude to. Just imagine all these things and then start to wonder, how did we think of that? How did the very first person think about that? How did the very first person think about a knife or a fork or a shaver, or a glass, right? Or a cup or coffee? Whose idea was it to boil coffee, like to grind up coffee and boil it in water? And I mean, 99% of the people in the world drink coffee. Who invented it? What prompted them to do that? What about medicine? What about everything? What about roads? What about anything? Shampoo, eyeglasses. It's fascinating when we ask questions. We don't even need to have answers. It's the looking for the answer where all the fun happens and where all the creativity comes. And I think that's the problem a lot of people might have in their lives. And again, I don't like talking for other people. I'm not talking, I'm just giving you my current understanding as to what I think is going on. How many people don't have the lives that they want, not because they don't have the lives that they want, but because they're just not understanding the dynamic of their universe around them. And if they did understand, fear would go away, because fear blocks so many good things. And we would be able to conceive of anything we need to conceive of to make our lives heaven on earth, literally. I'll stop in a second here. Sorry, I keep going on and on, but understand something. Feeling good isn't random. Feeling bad isn't random. There is a nature imperative that is involved in everything we experience. Feeling good tells us, in very general terms, that we're doing and or thinking the right things. Feeling bad tells us we're doing and or thinking the wrong things. If we pay attention to both of those feelings, our lives can be so much better just by doing that.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thank you. I feel like I got a better understanding. And so, would it be fair if I oversimplify it to say that there are certain patterns that we could see and or create with brain waves that correlate to happiness or joy or depression or anger or angst? And part of what you figured out is how to evolve this pre-existing technology in a way that you can stimulate or create or lead people to the patterns that are conducive to what they actually want to experience in their life. Is that a fair way to put it?
Sure. Yeah, I like that. One of my current understandings is that we all exist in our own universe. And the thing is, with quantum physics, it says at the most basic level, nothing exists until it's observed. The thing with people, though, is we don't just observe things. We interpret them. We give them meaning. So if we go back to quantum physics, and I agree with quantum physics saying nothing exists until it's observed, that means when you observe something and when I observe something, even if we observe something completely different, but we're looking at the same thing, then that means you're always right and I'm never wrong. Everybody's right all the time because that's how they see it. So that makes the universe their way. I see it a little differently. That makes the universe my way. You and I are talking right now. Our universes are close to each other. They're rubbing up against each other. When you go your way after and I go my way after, our universes will separate and they'll merge with somebody else's universe. Or maybe they'll stay independent for a little while and then maybe we're going to go have a nap or something. But that has served me so well to adopt this philosophy, because I used to wait for people to shut up so I could tell them how wrong they are. And I knew nothing, like less than nothing. But now I can learn from everybody all the time, because everybody's always teaching me, because they see the world differently than I do. And that's a beautiful thing. I don't feel alone at all. I just feel enriched every time I come across someone, every time I make eye contact with someone, every time a little smile, to a stranger. That's an energy transfer that's beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, beautifully said.
Thank
I'm
you.
with you. One of the things I studied when I got into college was philosophy. And one of the best things I took away from that was when I realized that I know nothing, then I have the chance to learn something. Right. So continuing to come back to
Yeah.
empty cup, all is possible. And when you were speaking earlier, I thought of a little Chinese proverb, which is, if you want the truth, just let go of your opinion. And we could say, if you want the current understanding or the evolution of the way we see things, let go of our attachment to the way we think it was, right? And what you're describing in some ways is contrary to a lot of mixed up rhetoric in the world these days about what science is. What you're describing to me is the epitome of science, which is, this is what we got so far. This is how it looks now. And we're going to keep exploring, and guaranteed tomorrow and the next day and 100 years from now, we're going to be like, whoa, now we see it all differently. Yeah,
You get
beautiful.
me. Yeah, you get
I'm
me.
with you. So Morry, then so this happened where you're like, okay, I had a sense that this technology should be able to help me. And all right, well, let me see if I can evolve it, adapt it, change it. And okay, and I did that. Oh, and it helped me. Like I got a little window into relief. And so, and I'm just going to summarize and guess at the next stage where you're like, all right, well, I'm going to double down on that then. Let's go. Let's do more of that. Like, first time in 40 years, something's actually helped me. So you went deep down into it and played with it, used it for yourself, and your obsession to continue to evolve it is what's led you to creating all these different ways of working with it and helping people with it. Is that all fair to say, if I'm guessing into the next stage?
You did a phenomenal job, actually. That's exactly what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where is it at now then? How does it work? How do, like, I'm assuming that people are gonna be with us here live or by rebroadcast, and they're gonna be like, I want to get me some of that. How does that work? Like, so how can people contact you, connect with you? How can they get an experience of what you're talking about? What's available? What's possible?
Well, they're welcome to, they can, of course, do a search for my name, Morry Zelcovitch. There aren't a lot of Zelkovitches out there, so you'll probably get me no problem. There's a website. Can I mention the gift that I want to give now, or?
Yeah, let's do it. Gift. We love gifts. You got a
Yeah.
gift. Morry's got a gift. What's the gift?
So I've got this recording called Alpha Flight. And it was initially designed for a psychiatrist. Her name's or psychologist, I believe, Dr. Doris Helge. She was actually my very first interview when I first got into this. She wrote a book called Joy on the Job. So if any of you are having difficulty with your jobs and getting any joy out of it, it's a great book to check out. It's still relevant today. And she had a group of high ticket clients, like big executives who flew a lot. And they would get jet lag, and they'd be kind of weird with the timing, and they'd be tired all the time. So I designed this 15-minute recording called Alpha Flight for them. And what it does is it helps to rejuvenate, to clarify, to kind of give you a respite. There's a lot more to it, because brainwave entrainment, when it's properly engineered, gives benefits far beyond those of what it's claimed to give. At least that's my experience. So if you need one thing and I need something else, we'll both get the same thing or we'll both get different things from the same recording. Our brains are the star here. So it's your brain that knows which direction to use the fuel and to take it in. So Alpha Flight, you put an ordinary pair of headphones, you lie back or you sit back. Don't do any of my recordings while you're driving or doing anything potentially dangerous. But all you're going to hear is shh. That is a background noise. It's designed to act like a mask, but it's actually 600 frequencies laid over top of each other one at a time. Most of them are designed as a mask, again, to block out external noise. Some of them are designed to hyperactivate different regions of the brain. So they're resonant to frequencies of different regions of the brain. That's how they've been designed to make the brainwave entrainment tone more effective. The entrainment tone that you're going to hear in Alpha Flight is bop, 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 because that simulates the firing of the neuron. And your neurons will start to follow that frequency. So they'll go pulse, 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 boom, 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 boom. That will get a dominant frequency happening for you in the alpha range, hence the name Alpha Flight. And that will then allow you to become dominant in that frequency, dominant in the neural chemistry that gets produced, and dominant in the way you feel as well. So that is at no cost at all. It just costs you your email and your first name. That's it. Not your firstborn, your first name, just in case you heard that wrong.
Okay, and the place to get that is quantummindmethod.com, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. It's all one word, and it's just quantummindmethod.com.
Okay, cool. So let's do this then. I will, I'm going to put that right into the comments. We've also got it on screen now. And in case for, some of our audience will be listening and not getting the visual aspect going on. So I'll spell that out for y'all. Quantum is QUATUM, mind, MIND, and method, METHOD. They're all like you would think, .com. And that is where you can go to enter your firstborn child. No, your first name and your email address. Perfect. Okay, awesome. And you suggest operating heavy machinery while doing that, maybe flying on an airplane. No, obviously people be safe with it. But
Yeah,
beautiful.
don't do anything potentially dangerous. Always very safe, very, don't do anything like driving or anything else while you're using this type of technology.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm happy to share my experience because you kindly shared that with me before, and it's been a beautiful experience for me using it. Just sometimes for me in the middle of the day, I'm like, wow, I feel like I've done 3 interviews and 4 conversations and 40,000 emails, and sometimes I'll just like, all right, I just need a few minutes to clean the slate. And it feels incredibly rejuvenating to me. So that's been part of my experience with it. And I continue to use it. So I'm grateful for that. Okay, cool. Well, let me ask you this then, Morry, since time is flying along here. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to bring forward?
Okay, so this work is used by governments to help with peak performance. The Brazilian military police and the Mato Grosso University did a study on my work specifically and is used currently to help train their military police. Jamaican University did a math pre and post exam stress study, finding that use of properly engineered brainwave entrainment, specifically the Morry method, which is kind of like the umbrella name for what I do, is quite beneficial. And the students who were using the Morry method did much better. They performed much better, had higher grades, less stress, better sleep, all these different things. Even Dr. Dale Bredesen, some of you may have heard of him if you have friends or family who are unfortunately dealing with Alzheimer's disease. He mentioned my work Revitamind in his book, The End of Alzheimer's, which was #1 on the bestsellers list from the New York Times, to help Alzheimer's patients. And he's actually developed systems that involved the use of my products as part of the protocol that have been shown to halt and even reverse Alzheimer's disease in some cases. Now, I'm not making a medical claim for Dr. Bredesen's protocol, but he does have studies and case studies that are showing great benefits. So if you or someone you love has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or early onset Alzheimer's, don't give up hope. There's lots of things that you can do and you can try that will hopefully help. The thing about brainwave entrainment is it's considered out there. It's considered woo-woo. But 20 years ago, I went to my family doctor and I said, my back is killing me. And you always give me these muscle relaxants and these pain pills. And frankly, they don't really help. I want to see a chiropractor. Can you write me a note? I'm in Canada, and if the doctor wrote a note, I didn't have to pay for it. So he said, no, don't do that. They'll break your neck. I've heard reports of them doing neck adjustments, and then people can't walk after that. They're witch doctors. Stay away, stay away. Today, he has 4 or 5 chiropractors as part of his practice. Woo-woo today is medical science tomorrow. So I encourage you to try things that are not dangerous. You listen to music all the time. You're hearing Daniel and I speak. You can hear sound. There's nothing new in that. It's just the way it's being presented. I encourage you to open your mind and your hearts to yourself and to your family and to your loved ones and to your friends, and not necessarily get them all to try my brainwave entrainment, but just open your minds to alternate ways, to different ways. You know, everything we do today was born here in the human brain, in the human mind. Surgery, antibiotics, headache pills, all these things were born up here. So was brainwave entrainment. So was EMDR. So was hypnosis. So were breathing techniques. All of these things came from the same source. So don't be prejudiced against one source because society chooses to give it a title that isn't very complimentary. Use your instinct. Use your self-knowledge. Use your intuition to help guide you, because ultimately you are the only guru for yourself. And one last point I want to make is that when it comes to self-improvement, I think all the brilliant people out there, and there's also so many brilliant products and services, they make one mistake, all of them. They should have at the very beginning of their video, of their audio, of their course, of their whatever, please remember that this was created by me, not you. I can truly only be an expert in my life, not in yours. So if I teach things or if I say things that resonate with you, don't just accept them, but reinterpret them, reimagine them, make them your own, tailor them to fit you. And then if you still resonate with them, try them. And that's when they have their best chance at fitting you, of working for you. Do I have time for a quick little story about Tony Robbins?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, it'd be really quick. So this is something that kind of explains what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about Tony Robbins' course because I'm at an event where he's speaking, and I'm going to talk about his course is actually his suit. So every time I say his suit, I mean his course. So I go up to Tony and I go, Tony, I want to buy your suit. You totally convinced me that I should have your suit. So Tony goes, okay, Morry, Venmo me $5,000 and I'll go in the back, I'll change clothes and I'll give you my suit. So he does that. I give him the money. He gives me his suit. If I go home and try it on, the guy's like, what, 6'7" or something? He's a giant. I'm 6'1". If I try on his clothes the way they are, I'm going to look like a 6-year-old trying on dad's clothes. But if on the way home, I go to a tailor, I get measured and I ask the tailor to tailor these things to fit me, when I come back in a week, they fit me like a glove. This is what I'm talking about. Tony is brilliant, but if I just do what he did, there's too many differences in who he is and who I am for it to work for me. The missing formula, the missing secret sauce is that it needs to be tailored to fit me before I take action, before I put it on. Then and only then do I stand a better chance of having it succeed for me. So hopefully this helps all of you with the thousands of dollars worth of products you probably have that never worked. Maybe you want to revisit them with this kind of an attitude, tailor them to fit you, and then see how much good they do for you. I suspect you'll get much better results the second time around.
Awesome. I love it. Tailor the suit, get it to fit you. All right. Well, Morry,
Yeah.
that brings us to our last question. And it's a big question, so big, it's impossible to get it right or get it wrong. And I say that because you've got all this, experience and a beautiful perspective. And if I now ask you to distill that, to bring it down to one thing, you have just one thing you can say to our audience to help them live their most vibrant, thriving life. What is that one thing?
Happiness is a choice. Feel it and choose it, and it will be yours.
How cool is that? Happiness is a choice. Feel it and choose it, and it will be yours.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Morry, thank you for your, incredible story, for enduring all that.
Am I frozen or are you? I guess the universe is trying to tell me something. Oh, it looks like it's just me. So, for Daniel, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. And if you have any questions or comments, you're more than welcome to contact me at the.morry.method@gmail.com. Morry is spelled Morry, as you can see on the screen there. And if I'm just talking to myself, then that's kind of funny. But it looks like Daniel got frozen out at the last minute there. And I want to thank those of you who are watching this live and those of you who are watching this as a recording. I guess all that remains to be seen now is to say again, thank you. I'm here for you. If you need me, feel free to reach out. And until next time, be yourself, be happy, trust yourself, and trust in others to do what's right. Trust in yourself to do what's right. And should I blither on a little longer? No, I don't think so. I think I'll just say thank you again. I'm here if you need me. Reach out anytime. Bye for now.
All right, look at that. Here we are, still rolling. I think. Are we? Yes, we're still recording. Very first time we completely lost our power. And so, hey, we were just about done anyway. And so now it's time really just to say thank you. Awesome. Morry, thank you so much for being with us. It was an amazing show. And for y'all in the audience, thank you, right? Because all of this show, the reason we do it is for you. And again, as I said before, please, please, please do try this out. Have an experience of it. Tune in again soon. We will have another amazing show. I so appreciate y'all being here. Thank you. I love you. Aloha. Mahalo for tuning in to the Art of Vibrant Living show, y'all. I'm Daniel Aaron, and may you live with great vibrancy.